bottom to the canyon. It had been dug by a river when this moon was younger, but there hadn't been any free-flowing water down in it for millennia. Somewhere down there, below the surface, there might be an underground stream, but it was hardly worth tapping into on a place this distant and desolate. I waved Kurt forward, and he slipped out of his backpack, yanking it open and pulling out a double handful of self-setting pitons, then passing one out to each of us. I took mine far enough down to make room for the others, found a likely rock outcropping, and jammed it into position, letting the chemical agent in the base bond with the rock for a moment before I let go. It stood in place another few seconds, then shuddered as it sank its telescoping anchor bolt deep into the rock. I played rappelling line out from the spool attached to my tactical harness, then clipped the end to the bracket on the piton, giving it an experimental yank. It felt nice and solid, and at this point in what I might laughably refer to as my career, that was good enough. I barely hesitated as I threw myself face first off the side of the cliff. Again, that sensation of not falling quite fast enough teased at the edges of my thought, warring against the fluttering of atavistic hindbrain fear of the looming impact. Both were wiped away as the motor inside the cable spool spun to life and began arresting my fall, lowering me to the ground 40 meters below at just under the maximum safe speed for my mass and the local gravity. I grunted softly as I hit, bending my knees to absorb the impact, then touching and holding a control on the side of the spool to detach it from my harness and toss it into the sand of the old riverbed. The cable dangled above it, gray and thin and nearly invisible in the gloom of the canyon. Even with the helmet's night vision filters and imaging software, I could barely make out the rappelling lines of the others stretched out above them as I watched them free themselves from their hookups. Down at the end of the formation, I could see one of them struggling with the spool attachment, trying futilely to yank it off the side of his harness. "Problem, O'Neill?" I asked him, getting ready to jog back to the man.
"Damn quick release is jammed."
The tall, lanky, former Marine enlisted man muttered distractedly, still absorbed in his struggle with the equipment.
"Sorry, boss,"
he added. I could hear the exasperated sigh clearly over the squad net, and I knew who it belonged to without even having to look.
"I'll take care of it, Munroe,"
Bobby Taylor told me. I could see her moving back from her spot near the middle of the formation, a broad-shouldered, powerful figure with an impatient stride that matched her tone. She didn't mess with the controls on the spool. She just pulled out her combat knife and sliced through the rappelling cable right at the dispenser. The cable was very strong, for all that it was as thin as a twisted strand of hair, but the blade was a molecule wide at the edge, and it parted the line like it wasn't there. Bobby slammed the knife into its sheath carelessly, despite its lethality, and unslung her rifle as she moved back to her position.
"Anyone else need their diaper changed?"
she cracked. "We're fine, Mother," Victor returned with a deep chuckle, echoed identically by Kurt a moment later. I didn't say anything, just waved them forward and headed down the canyon. It was 70 or 80 meters across, and had once been deeper before the river had dried up and it had begun.